Okay, so I think this is part 5 of the Undeveloped Next Generation scripts thing. I honestly didn't think I'd get to part 5 on this, but given that I'm a little below halfway done, yeah, maybe 7 or 8 will be when I end. Anyway, so this is something that they did in Star Trek Enterprise, but in TNG, they were actually considering doing a story about why the Klingons look so drastically different between TNG and TOS. Like, okay, people made a big deal about the way that the Discovery Klingons looked and the Kelvin Timeline movie Klingons looked. But when you actually take a close look at those, they aren't actually drastically different from TNG Klingons. However, TNG Klingons don't even vaguely look like the same race as TOS Klingons. They just don't. And this doesn't actually explain what the logic that they had in here was. So, I don't know. This just says that they were planning on doing that. Now, Enterprise's explanation was a bit controversial in that, like, how would that affect the entire empire? It's like, yes, there were several Klingon planets infected with it, but the entire empire, I don't think, would get infected by it. And then, having like literally every Klingon for several decades be stuck looking wrong. I don't know. Again, it's one of those things that's a very sci-fi thing that trying to apply real-world logic to it doesn't work because it abandoned real-world logic uh, from the get-go. Anyway, moving on. Here we have someone named Larry Brody who was uh, working on writing a script for the Next Generation. This is someone who worked and did a TAS and Voyager episodes, so that's good. Now, I don't see anything here about what his ideas were, which is a bit disappointing when it's a 3-paragraph write-up. It's just the background details of this guy reminiscing about how he tried selling them a script and it didn't work. Okay. Deanna Troi getting stuck in time on a planet and having a whole second life where she had children. They actually used that in later series. Yeah, it's like, I think it was Enterprise did that. But see, it's like, what's the difference here is that it's a temporal paradox thing and not just a hallucination induced by an alien computer. Because like that was the thing with Inner Light. Inner Light, none of the stuff that Picard experienced was real. See, it was memories from an alien who had recorded his life and jettisoned it into space because his planet was dying and he just couldn't think of anything better to do with the last few months or whatever of his life. Um, Odd that you would be able to build a space probe that can survive for that long and get into Federation space without being able to actually leave the planet yourself. And of course, build a device that's able to copy your memories into a different species. But whatever. Sci-fi logic. But this one, a temporal paradox where someone gets marooned in time and lives out a completely different life than what they would have normally. That is something, like I said, they did that in Enterprise. The Enterprise was exploring an unknown region of space, encountered a temporal anomaly, and wait, no, not Enterprise. That was DS9. Never mind. Did they do that in Enterprise too? Maybe they did. I don't know. But yeah, it was DS9. The Defiant goes to this planet. Um, it's like, oh, this is strange. What, why are there people that look like our descendants here? And then when they try to, well, what they find out is that the first time in the original timeline that they gotten there, everything had been fine until they attempted to leave, and at which point they encountered a temporal anomaly that caused them to crash into the past. And that in order to break the time loop, um, stuff would have to happen. Well, they break the time loop, and the planet, populated by their descendants, reverts to being unpopulated. So that all of those people that had been born from their descendants were no longer around. Which, you know what? If they'd done an idea similar to that with Deanna Troi, see, oh yeah, that's the other thing with that one is that in that episode, it had been several generations since the people had been marooned in the past. It wasn't a single person being marooned for several years, which is what Leap of Faith would have been. So, yeah, okay, as a TTRPG idea though, this is one of those things where having that happen to an NPC or making an NPC version of a player character could be fun. Because, like, oh, it's you, but not you. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to try to figure out how to fix what happened to the other you, or are you just going to let it happen and move on? Could be a fun plot idea. Then again, also, since you have a party and not just a single player, maybe doing that with like the entire party, I guess. Yeah, the entire party would probably be a thing on that one. It's like time paradox stories can get really, really weird. And sometimes it's fun. And here we have 5 entries that are basically, it's like, hey, this person tried to write a script. I don't know anything about it. Now, Mike Sussman had 3 spec strips that were Klingon centric. And let's see here. This doesn't say anything about it. And yeah, it's like apparently his idea, he decided it wasn't as good as Sins of the Father, which, okay, bold statement to make about your own work. Doesn't say anything about what it was. Yeah, moving on. Okay, apparently there were several attempts at doing mirror universe stories in the next generation. Thing is, one of Gene's ideas about what he wanted to do with the next generation was to not methodically retread TOS, even though there were several plots that were actually repurposed TOS plots and heavily influenced by TOS plots. They were TOS plots with the serial numbers filed off. They were not TOS plots played straight, which is what you would have to do for a mirror universe stories. You would have to play the TOS plot straight. Mm. Now, there's some like joking stuff here because like Edith Keeler eaten by carnivorous tribbles. Like, how would you make that an interesting plot point? It's like that's the name of a sight gag, not a plot point. Well, not name, but description, but whatever. Jerome Bixby, who wrote the original Mirror Mirror, had submitted a TNG sequel to that episode. The story he suggested featured not only the Mirror Universe, but also members of the TOS crew. And like I said earlier, it got rejected because of the fact that they wanted to not actually directly revisit anything from TOS. Yes, I know they had certain members of the TOS cast show up in TNG, but this is them like 100 years later, because like it's those characters having survived into the TOS era somehow, not the crew of the Enterprise going back in time to meet them or whatever. Hmm. Mnemonic enemy. Now, this is an interesting one because I'm like, wait, what do they think is too similar? And it's like too similar to Angel One. I'm like, wait, what? Looks like the only real similarity between the two was the concept of a alien society that has a different idea of gender roles than human society. Because like in Angel One, it's a extreme matriarchal society where males are sort of kind of treated as like second class citizens and kind of sort of treated as slave labor. I mean, that's the simplest way to put it, is that it's not exactly something that you would normally consider to be a normal functional society. And also, that's one of those things that's interesting, is because of the fact that the ruling council on Angel One is presented as being that planet's equivalent of the United Nations Supreme Council. And that Beata is the planet's equivalent of the UN Secretary in Chief or something. And that um well, one, you actually do see hints in the episode that not all of the people on Angel One actually agree with the current policy of treating males as second class citizens, because of the fact that Ariel is actually a leader. That's the thing about this. Ariel isn't just some random chick. Ariel in the Angel One episode is actually one of the regional leaders of Angel One. She's not just some random person. Beata is able to get her exiled and lose her position because Beata is the person who is the global leader and not a regional leader. But Beata's the only person who can actually claim to outrank Ariel in that way. Anyway, though, but like I said, that is an interesting aspect of the Angel One story that I think I would find to be worth revisiting. And I talked about it in a different episode. So, moving on. Now, this and Mnemonic Enemy, what it would have done differently. Well, we only have like one or two sentences about it. And that it was something different with related to separating the female and male parts of the crew of the Enterprise. And what exactly this has to do with the bad guys of the week? Ha. Given that this is the same person who later wrote Menage a Trois and the game, see, because the game is the one with that infamous alien device that hypnotizes people by making them think they're playing a harmless video game when it's really just distracting their conscious mind from the fact that their body is being used as puppets by an alien force. Now, what does this have to do with the mnemonic enemy? And what is it, how it in Menage a Trois? Maybe it's the whole idea is that the alien of the week steal all the female crew members on the Enterprise. I don't know. And do something or other to hypnotize them? Yeah, ran out of logic on this one. But, I mean, that does sound like a plot device that you could use if you were going to, like, put the players in a position where the party was split and part of the party had to save the other part of the party. Musical episode. They were thinking about it, but never actually did it. Okay, whatever. Inky Cloak. Well, don't know anything about it. Now, this is interesting because of the fact that we do, in fact, have an episode named The Neutral Zone. However, someone who was... it was a Natasha Yar background story episode. Okay. Well, and this is one where the option here is that in TNG they did establish that the Romulans hadn't been making diplomatic contact with the Federation since TOS era, or well, somewhere between TOS and TNG. Because in the TOS movies, the Romulans were actually relatively friendly with the Federation compared to TOS, anyways. But then between TOS and TNG, they abruptly severed relations. Here's the thing. Season 1 of TNG is what established that. And it didn't establish that until the Neutral Zone episode. So this would be basically it's like a completely different way to establish the current political status of the Romulan Star Empire. Now, this is, actually gives a pretty detailed description of the ideas here. So, hold on. An operation involving fluid drawn from Data's spine? How are you going to take parts of an android to... It's like trying to make a cybernetic spine for this Billings guy. Um, yes, of course. In this version, the Romulan commander was not actually on board with his people's peace plan and wanted to sabotage it. Well, that tracks, actually. See, some Romulans have very different goals than others. So the idea that the Romulan commander wouldn't necessarily be on board with what his superiors told him to do, that is absolutely a thing. However, you would expect the superiors to choose someone who was on board if they really wanted it to work. But perhaps they didn't know. Anyways. Yeah, someone sabotaged the transporter. Oh no, who did that? Well, hmm. See, I am kind of curious about this one because since these episodes had the same name for the script idea, it's like, was this something that they would have done separately? Because like that's what I'm thinking here is that this is something where it was two different script ideas for handling the um, definition of the current status of the Romulan Star Empire and the Federation. And this one got rejected possibly because of the fact that they decided they wanted to go with the other one. Hmm. Hard to say. Because, like I mentioned earlier about the produced episode, The Neutral Zone, is that that's actually the episode that gives you the backstory of what the Romulans have been doing since TOS ended. They don't even... I think they might mention Romulans once or twice prior to that in the entire season, eh, and don't talk in any detail about it. So, this having been written to explain what the Romulans had been doing since TOS, yeah, okay. Having it give a completely different take on the status of the Romulan Star Empire, okay. Also, the other script was kind of sort of part of them introducing the Borg. So it actually had a specific reason for getting picked up that maybe possibly kind of sort of threw the Romulans under the bus as part of setting up the Borg as a major enemy for the Federation. Because I don't see the whole status of the whole thing of like the Romulans having been uh, isolating themselves from the Federation for decades to be a interesting or relevant plot point. That was actually one of those things in TNG. I'm like, why would they do that? Because like you see the way the status of the Romulan Star Empire is in the TOS movies. They're relatively friendly with the Federation. They don't have a reason to want to isolate themselves from the Federation for decades. So the fact that they retcon it in TNG that Caitlin Dar is like one of the last few people to actually be a Romulan ambassador to the Federation. It's just like, what? Why? Anyway, though, but yeah, this is something that you could do as a like an alternate universe story, perhaps, because of the fact that having your players get knocked into a different timeline where the past is different and they have to figure out how to, handle the current issue without, messing things up. Yeah, that's something that's an interesting idea. I do think that could actually make a good plot. All right, no room at the end. We don't know anything about that. It's an idea by Justman though. He did several of those. Okay, let's see. You know what? I think I'll end it there. Yeah, this is over 25 minutes. Yeah, going to have to get to these next time. See you later.